Good morning. Senate Committee on State Affairs will come to order. Will the clerk call the roll?
Betancourt, Birdwell, Lamatia, Menendez, Middleton, Parker, Perry, Schwartner, Zaffarini, Paxton, Hughes.
Here. Again, good morning. We have an aggressive agenda today. We'll move through them quickly, making sure everyone gets to be heard and the witnesses or the bills are thoroughly dealt with. And so, to begin, the chair lays out Senate Bill 1300. Senate Bill 1300. As you can see, this is a very simple bill that does one thing. It makes the order of folks who can consent to remove a decedent's remains the same as those who can initially bury or cremate them. It's aligning the law because these ought to be the same thing. Under the current law, there's a list of persons who can inter a decedent's remains, but state law gives a different list of persons who can disinter a decedent's remains. Senate Bill 13 matches these two lists by adding the following individuals to those who can consent to remove the remains and put them in the same statutory order of preference as those who can dispose of them. The person that the decedent designates in writing to make the decision and the executor of the estate. Senate Bill 1300 also revises the statutory form of the appointment for disposition of remains to include the changes made under this law. There's a witness here today to testify on the bill and answer any questions the committee may have, and I'm happy to answer questions at this time. Very good. If there are no questions, we will open testimony, and the chair calls Meredith McIver. Please have a seat, make yourself comfortable. And when you're ready, introduce yourself and give us your testimony. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Hughes and members of the committee. My name is Meredith McIver, and I am a probate and trust attorney. I am here on behalf of the Texas Real Estate and Probate Institute, also known as TREP, which took over the legislative efforts that the Real Estate Probate and Trust Law section of the State Bar once carried. I am speaking in favor of SB 1300. TREP appreciates Chairman Hughes carrying this bill for us. This is a very simple bill that relates to the disposition of decedent's remains. There is a section in the Health and Safety Code that lists the order and identity of persons who get to decide the issue of dispositions of a decedent's remains. The order starts with the person who is designated in a written document, then any one of the decedent's adult children, then any one of the decedent's parents, then any one of the decedent's adult siblings, then the executor of the estate. The statute that provides for the order and identity of persons who can decide to disinter a decedent's remains should have the same order and identity of persons as the order and identity of those who can inter, but it does not. In fact, the statute on disinterring neglects to include in the list the person who the decedent designates in writing to make that decision, as well as the executor of the estate. So the purpose of the statute is to put those people in the list in order who can make the decision to disinter a body, and to make the order and identity of persons the same as the decision makers for interring a body. Thank you for your time, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Senators, any questions for the witness? Very good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 1300? Seeing and hearing none, testimony is closed. Bill will be left pending at this time. Senators, as you know, we are going to try to make sure we have a quorum around 10 o'clock so that we can vote on some bills. And if there's no objection, an unopposed bill like that, we would like to move through today, but we'll come back to you on that. But meanwhile, we'll continue to move through the agenda. The chair lays out Senate Bill 885, and recognizes its author, Senator Zaffarini, to explain the measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members, Senate Bill 885 relates to the grounds for terminating the parent-child relationship. Members, the victim of a family violence offense can apply for a lifetime protective order against the other parent. Lifetime protective orders are orders effective for a period that exceeds 2 years. A court grants a lifetime protective order only if there was serious bodily injury, the person committed a felony family violence offense, or the person in question has a pattern of violent activity that has warranted protective orders in the past. Persons subject to these protective orders may have violent and unsafe tendencies, which could be detrimental to a child in their custody. Currently, however, a lifetime protective order is not sufficient cause to terminate the parental rights of the parent under the order if they have not yet been convicted of the family violence offense, such as murder, capital murder, aggravated sexual assault, or continuous sexual assault on a young child. It can take up to 2 or 3 years for a criminal court to issue a conviction, and during this time, a child could be in the custody of an unsafe and unfit parent. Senate Bill 885 would allow, mind you, it's allow judges to consider the violent tendencies that led to the parent being placed under these protective orders rather than waiting for the parent to be convicted of the offense. Generally, the bill as filed originally would establish that a court may terminate a parent-child relationship if the parent receives a protective order for a period that exceeds 2 years due to a family violence felony offense. But there is a committee substitute, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to send up at this time.
Senator Zaffarini sends up a committee substitute. Recognize Senator Zaffarini to explain the substitute.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members, the committee substitute addresses concerns that were raised about the bill as filed. It would require courts to use a clear and convincing evidence standard when evaluating whether the person committed the family violence felony offense resulting in the lifetime protective order to ensure consistency with the standard used to terminate a parent-child relationship. So the bill as filed was not consistent. The committee substitute is consistent. It would provide that the court must grant a parent's petition for reinstatement of a parent-child relationship terminated due to a lifetime protective order if the parent is found not guilty of the underlying felony offense. And it would establish that a child may not be adopted until the parent is convicted of the offense related to the lifetime protective order because parental rights could not be restored once the child is adopted. So we have addressed those concerns that were raised about the bill. There was concern that a child might be adopted and then the parent was found not guilty. So in this case, the child can't be adopted until the parent is found guilty, if the parent is found guilty. Thank you. And there, we do have a resource witness that will answer your legal questions.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Perry, is your question for the resource witness or for the author?
You know, an accountant practicing law is a bad thing. I would take the resource witness. That'd probably be easier than the bill author.
Very good. So we'll ask our resource witness to come, and that is...
You sit down.
Check that it's a resource witness.
Is Vicki from the Department of Family and Protective Services?
No.
Well,
Steve Preston?
well, we have
Oh, okay.
I can ask the question. It's just, I figured if we had a resource witness, it'd be easier, but it's just up to you.
So let's do this before we go to our testimony. Anybody else have questions for the author? Knowing that we're going to have witnesses, we can also question.
Do you have a resource? Because if you don't,
We have Steve Preston.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not ready for Mr. Breslin, Ms. Bellino yet. You guys can sit there, but we'd like our witness from the Department of Family and Protective Services, Vicki. She is here. All right. Thank you very much. You guys hold tight. We're going to hear from you in just a moment or three.
Good morning.
All right. Good morning. Welcome. Get situated there. Make sure you're close enough to the microphone and introduce yourself and tell us who you work for. And then Senator Perry has a question for you.
Vicki Koz-Kajekian, General Counsel for DFPS, Resource Witness.
Thank you for being here. Senator Perry.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning. So that I understand it, it's about a due process question, I guess. So there are lifetime protective orders if someone has committed specific offenses. And the way I understand this bill is effectively if there's in question, the custody of a child is by one of those people that may have had a lifetime protective order, they would have their parental rights terminated based on that.
Yes.
So it would not apply to someone that had a protective order that may not have met the lifetime offenses. Those people would not have their rights terminated.
Correct. That's how it reads.
Okay, so it's basically the guys that have had a history of really bad things. We're just short-circuiting the extension of that. Is there a process, and I think she addressed it in her stub, that where they would actually have to go through the process to see if that person is still in that mindset or is still possibly going to injure the child? Is there some due process in that to where you terminate the rights of that parent?
I am not completely aware of that with regards to the substitute language.
Okay. I think as long as there's been an offense that met the lifetime protective order, and that's what the judge is using as his basis to go ahead and terminate guardian, odds are is this parent's not around, but clearly the child's probably in some proximity or there wouldn't be having a conversation about that. So it was just, I didn't want to terminate a parent's guardianship based on just an average or the standard protective order, but this requires the actual lifetime offense before they could terminate.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
And Senator, it simply allows it, it doesn't mandate it.
And thank you for that distinction, and I don't disagree with where you're going here. It's just, you know, protective orders sometimes are issued and legitimately so, but it's a personality. It's a lot of things going on there. But if these people have committed those offenses in the past, right, probably should revisit that, because the extension of courts today seem to find time. They don't care about expeditiously getting things out. So,
thank you.
Very well, thank you. We'll open testimony with two invited witnesses. The chair calls Steve Bresnan and Heather Bellino. Welcome, and glad you're here. Normally we go from right to left, but whoever wants to go first can go first. I bet Steve will defer.
I certainly will. You're up.
All right. Well, thank you, Senators and Senator Hughes. I am the Chief Executive Officer at Texas Advocacy Project, and I am here on behalf of the survivors that we serve and the attorneys that work their cases. So Family Code Section 161.001 provides a critical safeguard for the welfare of children, granting the court the ability to order the termination of the parent-child relationship upon finding by clear and convincing evidence that the parent has committed one of the 21 already listed infractions, and that termination would be in the very best interest of the child. Survivors of family violence often rely on item L, that's one of those 21, which mandates a criminal conviction or placement on community supervision for being held criminally responsible for causing the death or a serious injury of a child. This provision is frequently used due to the severe and violent nature of that abuse. This process, however, does fail to take into account the duration of a criminal court proceeding, and that's if the criminal court proceeding ever occurs in the first place. We know that prosecutions are not, people are not always prosecuted. So this provision, this process fails to take into that account, leaving survivors and their children vulnerable to ongoing abuse, despite having already obtained that lifetime protective order that Senator Perry just talked about being so difficult to have. Although evidence of violence against the child exists, the Family Code presently doesn't allow for that consideration, further compounding the difficulties encountered by survivors. Consequently, the law prevents judges from terminating a parent-child relationship where abuse is evidently present, rendering those judges powerless. So in light of these obstacles, it is essential to consider options for enhancing the protection afforded to victimized children. SB 885 achieves this by enabling the issuance of a lifetime protective order against the abuser to satisfy the initial requirement for termination, one of those 21s becoming the 22nd. So it serves as the first two prongs. So the measure does not eliminate or alter the judge's obligation to determine whether termination is in the best interest of the child, which is that second prong requirement. So judicial discretion remains intact and empowered. This legislative measure would provide a critical and immediate layer of protection for children, ensuring their ongoing safety and prosperity. So you can help to break the cycle of violence and create a safer future for all. And if I may, on a personal note, for 51 of my 54 years, I have called Barry Rose my father. I have been the full sister to Danny, Aaron, and Billy. And that is because my mother was able to terminate my biological father's rights. It was the most important thing that ever happened in my life. This bill is important, and thank you for considering it.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Steve Bresnan. I'm here on behalf of the Texas Family Law Foundation in support of Senate Bill 885. I think I'm going to spend my whole week testifying in favor of things that Senator Zaffarini's had a role in getting us to this point. She and Senator Hinojosa were the authors in 2017 of the bill that made for the possibility to have a protective order that exceeded 2 years in duration. And to get one of those, serious felony conduct has to have been inflicted on the applicant for the protective order, applicant's family, or a member of the applicant's household. So there's no easy way to go about that. And it's it could be a very strident, lifelong penalty. So these are the worst cases that come before the courts. I think one of the most important things in this bill is and I'm testifying as to the substitute. Hope I'm correct in that. On page 1, in lines 16 through 19, it authorizes the court to consider the evidence from the prior proceeding. So if you think about it in a time, there was a proceeding that from which the long protective order was issued, and then subsequent to that, there's another proceeding on the termination. And in that second proceeding, the evidence from the first proceeding can be admitted into evidence pursuant to that paragraph. So you don't have to go back and reinvestigate the entire case, and you may have witnesses that are gone or evidence that is stale. You could bring that forward from the prior proceeding, and I think that's very, very important. You cannot overstate, if you look at the list of conduct in subsection L, the dramatic nature of all of those, from murder, sexual assault, and on down to so-called lesser offenses. So the situation we have here is one that is calling out for a remedy and may actually put people on notice to abide by that lengthy protective order, or they may find themselves in worse condition than they started. And Senator Perry, in answer to your question, if somebody gets their life together, there are two things. Senator Zaffarini is quite right that this is discretionary, not mandatory on the court, and also it requires, as Heather pointed out, a best interest finding. So you could imagine a situation where somebody got their lives together and may be appropriate for them to have a continued role and have some parental rights retained. So I think there's a proper allocation of discretion here, but also the power to deal with the most egregious situations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, any questions for either of our valued witnesses? Thank you both for being here. It's your testimony.
Thank you all for your service.
We'll now open public testimony on Senate Bill 885, and the chair calls the following witnesses: Sean Hall Laquona, Miriam Spencer Morrison, Melissa Munoz. Again, the chair calls Sean Hall Laquona, Miriam Spencer Morrison, and Melissa Munoz. Welcome to each of you, and we'll begin over here as we customarily do on the right side. My left, please introduce yourself, give us your testimony.
Yes, my name is Sean A. Hall Laquona, Chairman Hughes and State Affairs Committee. It's an honor to be here today on behalf of my Father in heaven. In the Ancient of Days, that's his name, I stand knowing he is God in whom we trust against SB 885. In this I am confident. God is love, and the one who remains in love remains in God, and God remains in him. Love is clear and convincing, my words to government. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked. Rescuing his children, that faith-filled birthday, December 30th, 2003. Darkness perpetuated lie. Why? Wonder about an invasion, having rejected truth and broken rules. No one should sit and perpetuate a lie, nor have taken anything whatsoever that is not theirs under color of law, wholly lacking jurisdiction, authority, or power. My child remains someplace, alive on this earth as in heaven, because by God's power, in his name, I obeyed orders. He again rescued us through his authority in the working of his word. I warned the government, state, and federal, yet they failed to be corrected, even for the general welfare. Work in peace, be corrected, I ask. Peace beyond all understanding presiding over all the earth that faith-filled day, November 9, 2020, knowing him, the Almighty. And all the people among whom you are shall see the work of the Lord, for it is an awesome thing that I will do with you. You, I say, are witnesses of this thing. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, let this picture speak them all. As if from our daughter, for it was made in the USA, depicting the one true God who lifted up and throned this mountain. May I finish my?
Can you just finish that thought, please, because we have a lot of witnesses.
I hear you. Of corruption into the sea. Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony.
Do you have any questions?
We'll see about questions. We'll handle that from the chair. We'll see about questions for everybody at the end. Thanks.
All right.
Welcome. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony.
Hi, good morning. My name is Miriam Spencer Morrison. I'm from Tolar, Texas. I'm here. I understand the gravity of the need for this Senate bill, but I have concerns with the committee substitute. And the concern with the committee substitute that I have is that if the individual is acquitted or found not guilty of the offense, then they can resume their need for their parental rights. And I have a concern about that because so often in our court system, it's very difficult for cases to get to find people guilty of sexual assault, abuse, especially when it's in the family or it's a family member. And so I'm concerned that the fact that you're not guilty is a reason to allow a person who has potentially abused a child to get their parental rights back.
Thank you for your testimony. Mm-hmm. Welcome. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Melissa Munoz. I am an attorney from San Antonio, Texas. I represent children and parents in termination proceedings. I am here to testify against Senate Bill 885. Senate Bill 885 proposes to add subsection ground V as a ground for termination. That ground for termination is redundant to the current law. The current law includes grounds D, which is an abuse section, broadly summarized, and also ground E, which is an endangerment section. Both of those sections allow the petitioner, typically the government, to submit to the court evidence of past violence, which could include evidence of protective orders. The court already has the discretion to give appropriate weight to that evidence and determine whether or not that evidence is reliable in deciding whether to terminate a child's rights. A further confusion that subsection V creates is, even though the amendment purports to apply a clear and convincing standard to the admission of the protective order, which was granted under the preponderance of evidence standards, there's no authority or process by which the court can give heavier weight to an order that has already been granted. So that has potential to create litigation as to whether or not the court gave appropriate weight to the protective order. In the existing law, protective orders are recited in the petition for termination, which is required by the existing law. Protective orders are often attached when they are available, or they are submitted at hearings. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Senator Menendez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to get clarification on your testimony, what is exactly your concern with the proposed legislation in terms of its net impact to people? Because my understanding is that if the bill, the committee substitute, is adopted, it would provide the court some latitude, but it would also provide some direction in terms of direction in which way to proceed and reduce the amount of time for the people who have been victimized to have those parental rights terminated. What is the concern that you, like if we get to the heart of the matter, what do you think might unintended consequences, negative consequences would occur if this becomes law?
The concern is that protective orders have a much lower burden of proof. They are civil proceedings brought by a preponderance of evidence standard. A preponderance of evidence is slightly more than 50% convinced, whereas clear and convincing evidence is much closer to the criminal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt.
Okay.
Also, protective orders are often defaults. And that opportunity for the court to consider the evidence is already available to the court under the D&E grounds.
I see. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Chair. Members, any other questions for our witnesses? Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else present wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 885? Seeing and hearing none, public testimony is closed. Bill's left pending at this time. In just a moment, we're going to take up Senator West's bill, but before we do that, members, we're going to vote on some pending business. The chair lays out Senate Bill 825 as a matter of pending business. Senator Betancourt's bill 825. Senator Betancourt moves that we report Senate Bill 825 favorably to the full Senate with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Will the clerk call the roll? Senate Bill 825.
Betancourt. Birdwell. Lamatia. Menendez.
Can't find it.
Middleton. Parker. Perry. Schwartner. Zaffarini.
Aye.
Paxton. Hughes.
Yes. Is that 8? There being 9 ayes and 0 nays, Senate Bill 825 will be reported favorably to the full Senate. Senator Betancourt moves that Senate Bill 825 be recommended and certified for placement on the local and uncontested calendar. Is there objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Okay.
Chair brings up Senate Bill 221. 221. Senator Betancourt moves that we adopt the committee substitute, Senate Bill 221. Is there objection? Seeing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Senator Betancourt moves that Senate Bill 221 as substituted be reported favorably to the full Senate with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Will the clerk call the roll?
Betancourt. Birdwell. Lamatia. Menendez. Middleton. Parker. Perry. Schwartner. Zaffarini. Paxton. Hughes.
Yes. There being 6 ayes and 3 nays, the committee substitute, Senate Bill 221, will be reported favorably to the full Senate. The chair lays out as a matter of pending business Senate Bill 15. Senate Bill 15 by Senator Middleton. Senator Middleton moves that Senate Bill 15 be reported favorably to the full Senate with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Will the clerk call the roll?
Betancourt. There was.
15. Are you sure? There's a sub on 15?
Yes.
So let's back up for a moment. Members, Senator Middleton, would you temporarily withdraw the motion to adopt the bill? And now let's move to the substitute. And so there's no motion pending before the committee this time. Senator Middleton moves that we adopt the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the substitute? Seeing none, substitute's now before us. Now Senator Middleton moves that the committee substitute, Senate Bill 15, be reported favorably to the full Senate with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Will the clerk call the roll?
Betancourt. Aye. Birdwell. Lamatia. No. Menendez. Middleton. Parker. Aye. Perry. Schwartner. Aye. Zaffarini. No. Paxton. Aye. Hughes.
Yes. There being 7 ayes and 3 nays, Senate Bill 15 as substituted will be reported favorably to the full Senate. The chair now lays out as a matter of pending business Senate Bill 175. Senator Middleton moves that we adopt the committee substitute, Senate Bill 175. Is there objection to the adoption of the substitute? Seeing none, it's adopted. Substitute's now before us. Senator Middleton moves that Senate Bill 175 as substituted be reported favorably to the full Senate with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Will the clerk call the roll?
Betancourt. Aye. Birdwell. Lamatia. Menendez. Middleton. Parker. Perry. Schwartner. Zaffarini. Paxton. Hughes.
Yes. There being 7 ayes and 3 nays, the committee substitute, Senate Bill 175, will be reported favorably to the full Senate. The chair now lays out as a matter of pending business Senate Bill 1052. Senate Bill 1052. Senator Betancourt moves that Senate Bill 1052 be reported favorably to the full Senate with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Will the clerk call the roll?
Betancourt. Aye. Birdwell. Lamatia. Menendez, Middleton, Parker, Perry, Schwartner, Zaffarini, Paxton, Hughes.
Yes. There being 10 ayes and no nays, Senate Bill 1052 will be reported favorably. Senator Betancourt moves that Senate Bill 1052 be recommended and certified for placement on the local and uncontested calendar. Is there objection? Motion is adopted.
The chair brings up Senate Bill 922. There is a committee substitute. The bill's author, Senator Hughes, is recognized to explain the substitute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, you may recall this is the bill that will treat our game wardens and Parks and Wildlife law enforcement officers the same way we treat DPS troopers, allowing them to bank their personal time to use for legislative purposes. The committee substitute changes the number of active or retired members to 150 from 300 due to a decrease in membership from last session when the bill was first introduced. Again, the change was made so that the game wardens would be able to participate in legislative leave. That's all the substitute does, and I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Are there any questions of the author about the substitute? All right, seeing none, Senator Hughes moves that we adopt the substitute. Is there any objection? If not, substitute is adopted. Senator Hughes moves that we report the committee substitute to Senate Bill 922 favorably to the whole Senate. The clerk will call the roll.
Betancourt. Aye. Birdwell. LaMantia. Menendez. Middleton. Parker. Aye. Perry. Schwartner. Aye. Zaffarini. Aye. Paxton.
Aye.
Hughes.
Yes.
The votes being 10 ayes and 0 nays, Senate Bill 922 will be reported favorably to the whole Senate. All right, Senator Hughes moves that the bill be reported to local and uncontested calendar. Is there any objection? No. Thank you. Chair brings up Senate Bill 921, and Senator Hughes moves we report it favorably to the whole Senate. The clerk will call the roll.
Betancourt. Birdwell. LaMantia. Menendez. Middleton. Parker. Perry. Schwartner. Zaffarini. Yes, sorry. Paxton.
Aye.
Hughes.
Yes.
My ADHD kicked in there for a second, trying to figure out what exactly Menendez said. Did he say name?
We want to. Okay. Let's see. The votes being 8 ayes and 2 nays, Senate Bill 921 will be reported favorably to the whole Senate. Chair brings up Senate Bill 747. Senator Hughes moves we adopt the substitute to Senate Bill 747. Is there an objection? If not, the substitute is adopted. Senator Hughes moves we report the committee substitute to Senate Bill 747 favorably to the whole Senate. The clerk will call the roll.
Betancourt. Aye. Birdwell. LaMantia. Menendez. Middleton. Perry. Parker. Schwartner. Zaffarini. Paxton.
Aye.
Hughes.
Yes.
The votes being 9 ayes and 2 nays, the committee substitute to Senate Bill 747 will be reported favorably to the whole Senate. Okay. The chair brings up Senate Bill 1300. This is the bill we've heard this morning, members. And Senator Hughes moves we report it favorably to the whole Senate. The clerk will call the roll. 1,300.
Senator Efring, that's the bill about disinterring remains. It's lining up the stuff. We just heard it this morning with no opposite staff. Yes, ma'am. It wasn't in just this morning.
Betancourt. Okay.
You're a yes, I promise.
Aye.
Birdwell. Lamantia. Menendez. Middleton. Parker. Perry. Shortner. Zaffarini. Paxton.
Aye.
Hughes.
Yes.
10.
The votes being 10 ayes and 0 nays, Senate Bill 1300 will be reported favorably to the whole Senate. And Senator Hughes moves that we report this to local and uncontested. Is there any objection? If not, so be it.
Thank you very much.
Make it so.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Paxton, and I thank the members and the members of your staffs working with us on this. Returning to our agenda for today, the chair lays out Senate Bill 500. Senate Bill 500, and recognizes its author, Senator West, to explain the measure. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members. This is a pretty short bill that will ultimately help children who benefit from the services of St. Jude's Children's Hospital, as well as persons who benefit from similar situated charities that take advantage of the Texas charitable raffle statutes. This bill was brought to me by St. Jude's because they raise funds for the care they provide for children through the St. Jude's Dream Home giveaway. The Dream Home giveaway operates in 19 states, including Texas. Of those 19 states, Texas has the lowest prize cap. Two other states, Nevada and North Carolina, have prize caps of $500,000, but the remaining 16 states have no prize cap whatsoever. This bill raises the statutory cap on a home that can be given away from $250,000 to $1 million. The cap has not been increased, members, since 2005. Since that time, needless to say, the cost of lumber and overall building costs have skyrocketed. In the invited testimony, you will hear from one of the builders here in Texas that previously constructed these homes and donated them to St. Jude's. His company has been unable to do this for the last several years due to the rising cost and low statutory cap. The St. Jude's Dream Home Giveaway program is unique in that 100% of the funds raised go to support St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. I'll open for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator West. Senators, any questions for the bill's author? Senator Betancourt.
Morning, Senator West. Glad you could join us as always. I know, right? I agree. That's right. How long have we had a raffle for the homes? You know roughly?
I'm sorry.
How long have the raffles of homes like this been permitted? I'm curious.
You know, maybe the witnesses can answer that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, and if when you look at this from the standpoint of, you mentioned us compared to other states that we have the lowest limit, and so relatively, just wag guess, what percent are we different than the other states?
What percent are we different from other states?
Yes.
I can't give you the answer in terms of the cap that we have.
Yeah.
But most states don't have caps.
Oh,
Nevada has a cap of like $500,000. Our cap is $250,000.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Nevada.
Okay. Senators, any other questions for the author? Very good. Thank you, Senator West. We'll hear the testimony of the bill. We have invited testimony from the chair calls Kathy Fairbanks. Kathy Fairbanks.
Thank you.
Fairbanks, welcome. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
I'm Kathy Fairbanks. I'm the Area Executive Director of Texas for ALSAC, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and I am here in support of Senate Bill 500. St. Jude has a mission like no other. Most simply put, finding cures and saving children. We treat children with pediatric disease and other life-threatening diseases from all 50 states and countries around the world. While our hospital and labs are in Memphis, our discoveries are shared and utilized everywhere, including here in hospitals throughout Texas. We're leading the way. The world understands and treats and defeats childhood cancer, and families never receive a bill from St. Jude, not for their treatment, their travel, their housing, or their food, because we want those parents to focus on the most important thing, and that is saving the lives of their children. We do this through the support of generous donors, and the St. Jude Dream Home is one of our most successful awareness and fundraising programs. It allows communities a chance to support this mission. The premise is we work with builders, media partners, and volunteers to build and raffle a house through the sale of $100 tickets, all to benefit the work of St. Jude. A $250,000 prize cap was added in 2005. Today, which is 18 years later, this cap makes it extremely difficult to construct homes. While the program is excelling in most states, 16 of which have no cap, we are having to sunset campaigns in Texas. Increasing the cap will allow us to continue Texas Dream Home in support of the kids and work of St. Jude. We appreciate your consideration of the bill. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions? Senator Perry is the first one I saw. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to say thank you to St. Jude. It's one of my favorite charities. I'm not one of your bigger donors, but it's just an awesome. I've had friends that have had utilized their services, and it's first class.
Thank you.
And biggest hope provider for kids that probably need it the most, but it's a cool charity. Senator West, from a guy that's out in West Texas, no cap makes sense. So as you bring it to the Senate floor, I think there would be support to do that. Median household, we just look at, it's like a $300,000 is the median house price. So we're not really getting there sometimes. So I think you'd have huge support to remove that cap. And I'm just cognizant of the guy that wins the house. I hope they can afford the property taxes. So there's another conversation to be had. But at the same time, I think it's a great bill. But I think so much of St. Jude.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Middleton.
Thank you, Senator West, for bringing this. Maybe one thing we could add is a CPI inflator, so we don't have to come back and raise the cap again. I think that's a better policy to begin with, because it's got to track with inflation and what we've seen with home prices, and that would kind of fix this situation you're trying to address with this bill. So
I like that idea. Let's take it to the floor and do that amendment. I like that.
Thank you.
Senator Menendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your testimony. Senator West, thank you for bringing this bill forward. I want to join the call that I hear here with my friends in terms of bringing an amendment on the floor for eliminating the cap. If we eliminate the cap, then we allow the raffle to be more successful. And you said 16 other states don't have a
Correct.
cap. Yeah, and you possibly get 2 homeowners out of the deal, so if you don't have the cap. So now you can raise more money for St. Jude. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Senator Betancourt.
And that's what I was asking the questions about earlier, Senator Royce, and obviously the St. Jude, the whole program is excellent. And I just want to assure you that with the bill that rocketed out of Senate Finance, 17-0, depending upon what age somebody buys this home at, they'll either get a $70,000 exemption or a $100,000 exemption. So we'll handle a lot of the property tax load in a separate bill. But I agree also, too, when you look at this, there's no reason to complicate this. If we should look at a situation where if they can build 2 homes at the average value of $331,000 in the state, or if they could build 3 homes at the average value of $331,000, they should be able to do it. So
I was just trying to be conservative.
I know you were. And now I'm trying to be prudent with time and the money of the people donations. But that would bring a $1 million cap in for 3 homes, average homes. So.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Senator,
if it's the will of the committee, I would do a committee substitute taking the cap off. If it's the will of the committee, I'll do a committee substitute. Are you voting bills out today, or are you holding them over? How are you doing it?
This one, apparently, if no opposition, the intent was to keep it moving, voting it out today, but it's your bill.
Well, let's keep it moving, and then it'll probably go to local, though. But it'll probably go to local. Okay, I'll put the amendment on the floor.
Yeah, we'll try to vote again today, and this will be on the list if we get any more votes today. Okay. And we also, the chair also calls Darren. Any of the witnesses, any of the questions for the witnesses at this point? Darren Stadler. Chair calls Darren Stadler. Welcome. Have a seat. Get situated there. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony.
Thank you. I'm Darren Stadler. I am the owner of Evolutionary Homes in San Antonio, Texas. I also submitted a letter from builder Jimmy Pittman from College Station, and who's also been a dream home builder. I am in support of this bill. I've had the opportunity of actually visiting the hospital before, and I can tell you it is truly amazing what they do. I had really never heard of them before, and then when they asked us to do it, they took us out there, and I toured the facility and saw what they do, and they truly make it so that parents and families can solely focus on healing their kids and not worried about, okay, how am I going to pay for this bill? How am I going to get here and there? They take care of everything, so they have zero concerns other than healing their child. So it truly is amazing. I've been involved with St. Jude for about 12 years now, and I've built 3 dream homes. 4 years ago was the last one that I was able to build, just because costs became so high that it wasn't possible anymore. It really became impossible, unfortunately. So hopefully this will pass, and I'll be able to join back in and help St. Jude, because I can't think of a better cause. Thank you.
Good, very good.
Senator Menendez. Thank you.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your testimony today. Have you heard the conversation about eliminating the cap? Would that make it, I'm assuming I know the answer, but I just want to hear it from you. Would that make it easier for you and other builders to potentially participate in this?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like it was mentioned earlier, if there wasn't a cap, it would really make it so it doesn't need to be revisited in 3 years or 5 years or something like that. So that would be ideal.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks for your testimony. Senators, any other questions for the witnesses? Very good. Thank you. Anyone else present wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 500? Seeing, hearing none, testimony is closed, and leave the bill pending at this time, knowing we want to keep it moving. Thank you, Senator West. Thank you, witnesses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senators, we are cognizant that the support services at the Senate have to get these tables moved so we can get back in session. Senator Parker has a bill with a witness that is in multiple hearings, and so we want to try to get that one in and out quickly, and then our intent is to send a recess till the floor. So the chair lays out Senate Bill 1089, Senate Bill 1089, and recognizes its author, Senator Parker, to explain the measure.
Thank you, Chairman Hughes and members. Senate Bill 1089 seeks to uphold the principles of transparency, fairness, and inclusivity in the electoral process by repealing the ability to declare unopposed candidates for office as elected in Texas and clarifying the order in which offices are listed on the ballot. Elections are a crucial mechanism for ensuring the legitimacy of the people's representatives, and allowing uncontested candidates to remain on the ballot upholds the democratic principles of transparency and inclusivity. Excluding uncontested candidates from the ballot can be seen as a violation of these democratic principles and may erode trust and confidence in the electoral process. Additionally, having uncontested candidates on the ballot sends a message to the public that the electoral process is open and transparent, which is essential in fostering trust and confidence in the system. By repealing the ability to declare unopposed candidates for office as elected in Texas, Senate Bill 1089 ensures that voters have the opportunity to exercise their right to vote and have their say in the electoral process, even in the absence of competition. Moreover, clarifying the order in which offices are listed on the ballot ensures that voters can easily locate the candidates they wish to vote for. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I ask for your support of Senate Bill 1089 and welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Senator Parker. Members, any questions for Senator Parker? Very good. We do have Christina Atkins here as a resource witness. Anybody got questions for the resource witness? Senator Parker, you need a resource witness on this one?
I believe
it's fine if we don't.
May not have one.
But I just want to make sure. Anyone wishing to testify on for or against Senate Bill 1089? Looks like we have maybe one witness. Just a moment. So I see only one. Very good. Chair calls Miriam Spencer Morrison. Miriam Spencer Morrison, testifying for Senate Bill 1089. All right, welcome back. And Ms. Morrison is the only witness we have registered to testify on this bill. And so, welcome back. Have a seat. Even though we know you, introduce yourself and give us your testimony.
Hi, Miriam Spencer Morrison. I'm from Tolar, Texas. Thank you for having all the bills I need to speak on the same day. So the 3-hour drive is worth it.
Good.
I'm actually here to support a bill, which is exciting. But I'm here to support it, unfortunately, because my county, in Hood County, I can tell you, we have had several ballot measures where candidates were unopposed, and we are always on the page that they're unopposed, so we don't get to vote. They're approved by acclamation. And it's unfortunate because when, as an election clerk, and an election judge, as you're explaining to the voters that the people have no competition, so they're going to win anyway, it causes quite frustration at the ballot boxes. And so I want to thank you for removing this and making it clear that these are the people who are running for these offices. And yes, you can pick them or not pick them if you'd like, but as our ballots have often had, they've had all of them on one page, and it's just a yes, no for that one page for all of the unopposed candidates.
Thank you for your testimony. Sir, if there's any questions. Very good. Thank you for being here. Senators, we have just a little time before we need to strike the tables and get going. The bill that we just heard, there's been no testimony against. You okay with voting that one out? Can we take a vote on that one now? Very well. Okay. Senator Parker moves that Senate Bill 1089 be reported favorably to the full Senate with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. Will the clerk call the roll?
Betancourt.
Aye.
Birdwell. LaMantia. Menendez. Middleton. Parker. Perry. Schwartner. Zaffarini. Paxton. Hughes.
Yes. There being 10 ayes and no nays, Senate Bill 1089 is reported favorably. Senator Parker moves that the bill be certified for the local and uncontested calendar. Is there any objection? Hearing none, it is so ordered. And with that, Senate Committee on State Affairs stands in recess. It is our intent to resume 30 minutes upon adjournment, but I will be making an announcement. So Senate Committee on State Affairs stands in recess. Pending call of the chair. Good morning.